Hope you can hear me over the air conditioning in there. Thankfully it's not back here in the junk room where it's friggin' blazing hot. Been a human day, but show must go on. Cheers, my friends. I'm here to do the Authortube in the Trenches tag, an original by Strip Cover Lit. It was tagged by Adrian. Thanks, Adrian. Okay, number 1. Do you have a sweetheart novel, short story, poetry project, or a project that turned you into a serious writer? Well, you can answer this with one response, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to answer this with 2 responses. My sweetheart novel at this point, I mean, obviously Grayson, The Colored Rain is the work I'm the most proud of, and it's an historical novel. But The Gospels of Equus, which is laying back here somewhere, at this particular time, it's my sweetheart project. And a project that turns you into a serious writer. Well, the first novel I attempted was The Witch Dog, and it had to do with the Salem witch trials and this entity inhabiting this dog, and I got about 120 some pages into that, and it started to feel a bit constricting, so I scrapped all that and I switched it over to The Scronger, which was my first completed novel. So I started the one, actually when I was working up north, was probably about 89, and then The Scronger, I finished the final draft of that in 92, so you're looking at a 3-year gestation period. So, and you know, I have some other stuff, like when I first started writing, I'll read you the last part of this. It's called The Rivals. It was July 1988. Or you can read it yourself. You don't have to pause. I'm not going to hold it up there, but so yeah, I've been at it that long. And you know, I started out with poetry because it was the safest. And here's a poem called Why. I remember my first poem was actually The Return of Boreas, which was about fall and winter coming, and that's the one I felt like, hey, maybe I'm on my way. This one here was written December 9th, 1987. And it's called Why. It's not exactly an insightful, groundbreaking poem, but you know, you gotta start somewhere. So. Number 2. Do you ever plan to work on a series length project? I absolutely am going to, and it's a series of detective novels. The main character is Garland Spear. He is he used to be on the state police force. He retired, he became a private detective, and then he post-traumatic stress, PTSD got the best of him, and he was getting ready to end his life, and something changed his mind, and he decided that, you know, maybe life was worth living, and that's kind of where it picks up, and then it just kind of goes from there. So yeah, a detective series. Three, thoughts on mixed form projects. Stories that feature poems, novels that contain short stories, It doesn't bother me. I had a short story, Lonesome Sepulchre, rejected back in the early 90s because they're like, hey, you don't combine expository style with narrative, if I'm even saying that right. I don't know. But what the story was about was these guys up in Alaska, they were digging gold, and something weird happened, and they found the bodies in the cabin, and they started reading the diary of one of those people that perished, and it kind of went from there. And heck, I'm proud of the story. The fact that it was rejected doesn't mean shit to me. I mean, it maybe meant breaking in, but I'm still proud of the story. Where do you picture publishing in 10 years? Basically the same. You know, probably a bit more electronic stuff. I'm sure there'll be some format changes, but I think hard copies will always be in demand, or at least they will as long as I'm alive. And hopefully I'll be somewhere in the mix when it comes to publishing. 5. If you could have one booktuber review your work, who would it be? Dane Cobain. I would like for Dane to read something of mine that was properly edited and formatted. 6. Writers' quarrels are things of legend. What author alive today would you want to spat? Actually, I wished I would have looked his work up before I did this. I had plans to do that, but I didn't get around to it. That's Jeff Strand, Dweller. And I'd like to know whose ass he kissed to get this published, because I didn't like this book. I mean, maybe he's improved since then, but when you're trying to get published and somebody comes along and publishes something like that and you can't get your stuff in print, it pisses you off. Because, I mean, read that, you know. There, Jeff, I'm promoting your book. Read that and then come talk to me. Seven. Have you ever been part of a writers group? Yes, I was in college. I was part of a group of writers in a creative writing class. I was a student editor on the college magazine, Kudzu, and so we collectively produced a poem, and my lines got cut. They kept everybody else's, but they cut mine. And the only thing I remember is it had to do with calcified truths, and it was either an oversight or the professor just didn't care for me. Because, I mean, come on. I was an older student. I spoke my mind in class. Thought I had good rapport with this particular instructor, but I always wondered whenever that got cut, so I don't know. Do you have a favorite writer's craft book? Stephen King on writing. Now, I have several writing books, but, you know, being a Stephen King fan, it's hard to go wrong with this one. I mean, you can't deny there's a lot of truth in this book. And least favorite writer's craft book is Armed and Dangerous, A Writer's Guide to Weapons. I should have known better that this was going to be a waste of money for myself, because having been around weapons for the majority of my life, I really didn't need a book on it. Heck, you can order a gun, you know, Guns Digest or Gun Digest, and it'll tell you all the ballistics and what, you know, every particular weapon or caliber is capable of. And then as far as, you know, hand-to-hand or melee weapons, you know, knives, clubs, etc., you know, that should all be self-explanatory. So that's it. Thank you, Adrian, for the tag. I'm going to tag Stephanie over at Lattes and Mockingjays. I'm going to tag Gina over at Bibliofilth. Man, I should have wrote these down. Dane Cobain, if you haven't done this. I think Mark Nash has done this. If you haven't done this, Mark, give it a whirl. I'm pretty sure Mark at Richardson Reads has done this. Mark, if you haven't done this, I appreciate it. And Ann over at Book Your Imagination. So anybody else that wants to jump in, go for it. You know. Hopefully you won't be chippy like me. It's been a long day. Thanks again for the tag. You dudes over there at Strip Cover Lit, keep them coming. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Hope I didn't bore the you-know-what out of you. Till next time, bye.